Alright kids, so really quickly, it's been pointed out to me, we're going to check in about the difference between a seam and a hem. So if we don't spend a lot of time with garments or garment making or I guess thinking about garments using our brain spoons on garments, we might not really have a differentiation between these two words. This boy, your side seam, we'll always call it your side seams, and your other side seam and your crotch seam on your patterns that you've been working with this whole time, those, good news, are seams. They're always going to be seams. A seam is anywhere that two pieces of fabric are connected to each other to make a different shape of piece. A hem, on the other hand, is something that we just finished. So it's left open, and at the end of the process, we finish it nicely and neatly so that all of our scraggly edges go away and we just end up with a clean straight line at the bottom of our garment. So if you look at, for example, the bottom of your own t-shirts or your own jeans, you're going to have a hem there where the fabric is folded back and stitched down so that all of the excess is within and we have a nice straight clean line. That's what we're going for. So as per usual, I'm stealing Andrew's pants just because it's a trend now. So this, two pieces of fabric stitched together, that is a seam. Everybody's got a seam. If you're doing pants, you've got a crotch seam and you've got side seams. If you're doing skirts, you just got side seams. Side seam, two pieces together, seam. When we're looking at the cuffs, right? The end of the pants. The end of the pants all the way down to the bottom of the leg. That's your hem. On your skirts, think of the hem of a skirt. You probably do have a visualization in your mind of what that is. So when we're putting in a hem, all we mean is that we're folding back these edges, pressing them, and stitching them down. That's all that we're going for here, okay? I'm going to say this out loud really carefully. The hem is an alteration. It is the responsibility of the alterer, not the owner of the garment, okay? The responsibility of the alterer. This is an alteration. So what you should end up with by the end of your fitting, that we did today, theoretically, is you should end up with a garment that is marked at the hem, right, at the length point, to the correct length for that body and the style that's been chosen. It should be marked with safety pins or wax. Usually you're going to end up marking it with safety pins. That's the easiest way to do it, and that's the way that we demonstrated. And now, because I can't press this, we need to press it first before we stitch it. I can't press it with these safety pins in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and mark it with our same chalk that we're using for everything else, our same wax. I'm shooting my own video here, you guys. I'm marking my bottom point. That's all I'm doing, all the way around. The whole hem, whether it's skirt or pants, you're going to be doing exactly the same thing. I'm going to go around and I'm going to mark exactly where that hemline is, okay? So what I want to end up with, now that I've removed those safety pins, is a pretty clear wax line that I can follow. And even if I've got some edgy stuff here, I'm going to be able to make that a straight line when I press it, all right? Now I'm going to reiterate what we talked about in class and what is written down in Canvas, which is you are doing this with the chalk, all right? You could use a pencil, like an actual graphite pencil if you wanted to. I would accept that. This is not the time to use Sharpies, all right? This is from the original stitching line. But for your hem marking, this is not the time to use Sharpies or markers or pens. This is not the time to cut a corner. Use the wax. Use the wax. This tool, this boy, is going to be left out on the ironing counter. You don't have to use him, but he can make it a little bit easier because a pant leg, for example, can slip right over him. And it gives you access to one layer at a time, which makes it a little easier. So for clarity of this video, this is the original stitching line, the original pattern mark that Andrew made. We're not following that. We are following the white line. And your line should be made, white wax line, should be made on the outside, the right side of your fabric, all right? Now, let's see how well I can hold this camera. How many hands do I need? You want to hold this for a hot sec for me? Thank you! Everybody say thank you to Luis. He's the best. Going to take our iron and we're going to fold this to the point where that white line is that I've marked. And you're going to press it really, really well. If you want to be extra sure, give it a little spritz of water. That way those fibers will be steamed to heck in place. We're going to do that all the way around. What this will do is melt the wax off, so your actual mark is going to go away. But the pressing itself is holding that in place so that it cannot budge and you will always know where that line is unless you were to steam it out or press it out on purpose. See how that's holding? It's not going to go anywhere. Even if I flip it all the way out, I can still see that line. That line's never going away unless I try really hard to make it. all right?
Thank you.
All right, so last but not least, I could pin this. You don't have to, but you can. If you feel uncertain about it, you're following this line. The crease line is your God. No, the crease line is the thing that is telling you where to go, all right? Even when we fold it out, he's still there. He live here now. So I'm going to follow that, but if we were going to pin it, we don't want to pin it this way, right? We're not trying to match up lines. We're just following that line where it naturally falls now. We've put it there. You want your pins to go this way. You want them to be perpendicular so that you can sew over them because you're sewing this way. This is going to get you broken needles. This maybe does not give you broken needles, and it's easier to flick out, all right? So as we go over to the machine, this is gonna be fun. So what I'm going to do is use a guide on the machine. So I'm looking at where this is, how much I have available, and you can pick any line. You can pick any line on the machine. So these boys are made as deliberate guides. So we can say like this is a specific distance from the needle, et cetera, and that's how big my seam allowance is gonna be. For this, because of how narrow the amount of fabric I have left is, I like this line right here. I like him. I think he's about the right distance, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to line him up, start at one end, put down my feed, send down my needle. All right. There's a lot of reasons that this could go wrong. I'm going slowly. Slowly is your friend if you're unsure. Slowly is always your friend. And I'm just going to keep matching it up to that line that I chose all the way around my entire hem. Get to the point that you're encountering the side seam. You can see he's going to try to squidge up and get tangled in there. Just got to have a little bit of control. What you might want to end up doing is putting your needle down, lifting up your foot. You can see how he's a little bit like chunked up in there. Smooth him out, put the foot back down. Now you can keep sewing and he's going to stay smooth. Okay, this is what we want to see at this point. The inside, a little bit rough, got some Sharpie marks. Outside, look how pretty. Look how pretty. So this is what I mean. We want to see an even distance from the absolute edge of the pant to the line that marks your stitches, all right? Now, the next step would be, and this is something where you can choose, you guys use your agency to decide whether this is the responsibility of the garment owner, which would be Andrew, or the alterer, the person who's responsible for the alterations on this garment. Because the very last step would be to go in with some sharps, whatever your preferred scissor method is, and get in here and make sure that this is an even length. Do you see how he's like wide here, more narrow there? So go to like your thinnest point and you would snip, trim everything down so it's even. This will also probably get rid of some of your Sharpie marks that we might not want. You may eventually also, and you can check out trimming in the rubric if you want to check that out and like look for that, 1% of a grade or whatever it is. You could also trim off some of these, all right? Get rid of any excess that you don't need. At this point, it should be fitted. It should all fit well, so you can go ahead and trim away anything that's excessive, any loose threads, any of that kind of stuff, and make the insides almost as pretty as the outsides, all right? We're not learning a new stitch. We're pressing and using a straight machine stitch all the way around, and we're practicing creating a nice clean line for our hems. That's the whole strat. That's the whole story. Again, the hem is the responsibility of the alterer, the person who's doing the alterations. Anything that involves scissors cutting into a garment, I totally understand if you don't feel comfortable doing that on somebody else's garment, or they don't feel comfortable with it, and that be done by the person who designed and owns the garment. So you do not have to trim if you are the alterer. You could, if you want to, negotiate that together, but it's not your responsibility unless you choose it to be. Otherwise, all trimming is going to be the responsibility of the owner of this garment, which in this case would be Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for lending us your pants yet again. My friends, just take a second to process. This is not
a brand new skill set, okay? This is things that you do have. I have seen you all do these things at this point. You got this, okay? It is marking a thing, pressing a thing, and then neatly using the machine to create a straight stitch. You have done this. You can do this. We are not building in an entirely new skill set at the last minute. This is the same stuff we've been practicing and we've been going over, and it is absolutely something you can accomplish, I believe,